Albert Einstein stands among the giants of scientific history. His name evokes images of deep thought, complex equations, and revolutionary theories that changed the way we understand the universe. More than just a physicist, Einstein was a philosopher, a humanitarian, and a pacifist whose influence extended far beyond the realms of science. He is remembered as the mind behind the theories of special and general relativity, the equation E=mc², and as a central figure in the development of quantum mechanics. Yet, the man behind the genius was much more complex, a person who faced personal challenges, controversial moral dilemmas, and the highs and lows of public fame. In this documentary, we will journey through the fascinating life of Albert Einstein, from his early years as a curious and rebellious student to his groundbreaking scientific achievements that redefined the laws of physics. We will explore his personal relationships, his rise to international fame, and his later years when he became a moral voice in the post-World War II world. Einstein's story is not just one of science. It's the story of a man who grappled with the tensions between personal beliefs and public responsibilities, and a man who sought meaning in a universe he was helping to decode. Albert Einstein was born on March 14, 1879, in the city of Ulm in the Kingdom of Württemberg, part of the German Empire. His family was non-observant Jewish, and his father, Hermann Einstein, was an engineer and businessman, while his mother, Pauline Koch, was deeply involved in her children's education. Einstein's early years in Ulm and Munich were marked by curiosity, but also a notable quietness. The young Einstein didn't begin speaking fluently until after age 3, leading his family to worry about his intellectual development. This concern was soon erased as Einstein's love for learning, particularly in math and physics, became apparent. Einstein's early schooling was at the Luitpold Gymnasium in Munich, a school known for its strict discipline and rote memorization. The rigid educational structure conflicted with Einstein's independent and curious mind. He found the lessons uninspiring and clashed with teachers, who considered him a disobedient and unremarkable student. Despite his struggles in the traditional classroom setting, Einstein showed an extraordinary aptitude for problem-solving on his own. By age 12, he was teaching himself geometry and algebra, reading advanced textbooks in his free time. His understanding of abstract mathematical concepts far surpassed that of his peers. In 1894, Einstein's family relocated to Italy after the failure of his father's electrical business. Albert, however, stayed behind in Munich to complete his schooling. Feeling stifled and rebellious, he soon left school without a diploma and followed his family to Milan. During this period, Einstein spent much of his time studying independently and developing his love for physics. In 1896, he was accepted to the Swiss Federal Polytechnic School in Zurich after passing the entrance exam on his second attempt. At the Polytechnic, Einstein thrived. He met a group of like-minded students and future collaborators, including the Serbian physicist Miliva Maric, who would play a crucial role in his personal and intellectual life. After finishing his studies, Einstein faced the challenge of finding an academic position. Despite his undeniable talent, Einstein's rebellious nature and lack of respect for authority did not endear him to his professors, and he struggled to secure a university post. In 1902, he began working at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. Although this was far from the career he had envisioned, it provided Einstein with enough free time to work on his theoretical physics papers. While supporting his young family, he had married Miliva Maric, and the couple had their first son, Hans Albert, in 1904. 1905 would prove to be the most productive and transformative year of Einstein's career. Dubbed his Annus Mirabilis, or Year of Miracles, Einstein published 4 revolutionary papers in a single year, each of which would have a profound and lasting impact on the field of physics. The photoelectric effect. In March 1905, Einstein published his first paper, which proposed the idea of the photoelectric effect. He theorized that light could be thought of not just as a wave, but also as discrete particles called quanta or photons. This was a revolutionary concept that laid the foundation for quantum theory. This work would later earn Einstein the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1921, although it would take years for his contemporaries to fully appreciate its significance. Brownian motion. In April 1905, Einstein tackled the long-standing problem of Brownian motion, the random movement of particles suspended in a fluid. His paper provided convincing evidence for the existence of atoms and molecules, using statistical mechanics to explain the motion of these particles. By mathematically modeling Brownian motion, Einstein gave strong support to the atomic theory of matter, which had been a subject of debate among scientists for years. Special theory of relativity. Perhaps the most well-known of Einstein's 1905 papers was his June publication on special relativity. The theory of special relativity fundamentally altered the concepts of space and time, proposing that the laws of physics are the same for all observers, regardless of their motion, and that the speed of light is constant for all observers, regardless of their relative motion. This contradicted Newtonian physics, which had reigned supreme for over 2 centuries. Special relativity revealed that time and space are intertwined in a single 4-dimensional continuum, known as spacetime. Einstein's fourth paper introduced the now famous equation E equals mc squared, which states that mass and energy are interchangeable. This idea suggested that a small amount of mass could be converted into a tremendous amount of energy. This equation would later have profound implications for both theoretical physics and practical applications, most notably in the development of nuclear energy and atomic weapons. Einstein's Annus Mirabilis papers redefined the boundaries of physics and placed him among the most respected theoretical physicists of his time. Despite working outside academia at the time, these 4 papers would mark the beginning of Einstein's path to international fame. Albert Einstein's personal life was as complex and tumultuous as his scientific career. In 1903, Einstein married Mileva Maric, a fellow physicist from Serbia, whom he had met while studying in Zurich. Their intellectual bond was strong, with some historians speculating that Maric contributed to Einstein's early work, though the extent of her involvement remains a subject of debate. The couple had 2 sons, Hans Albert, born in 1904, and Eduard, born in 1910. Mileva Maric and early family life. In the early years of their marriage, Mileva was both a partner in life and, to some extent, in Einstein's scientific work. However, the pressures of Einstein's burgeoning career, coupled with the couple's financial struggles and Einstein's growing fame, began to strain their relationship. Einstein's emotional detachment and obsessive focus on his work left Mileva feeling isolated and overburdened by domestic responsibilities. Separation and divorce. By 1914, their marriage was falling apart. Einstein accepted a position at the Prussian Academy of Sciences in Berlin, and while Mileva and the children initially joined him, they soon returned to Zurich, effectively marking the end of their relationship. The couple formally separated that year, and their divorce was finalized in 1919. As part of the settlement, Einstein promised to give Mileva the money from any future Nobel Prize, a promise he fulfilled in 1921. Relationship with Elsa Einstein. During his time in Berlin, Einstein became close to his cousin, Elsa Lowenthal, née Einstein, whom he would eventually marry in 1919, shortly after his divorce from Mileva. Unlike his first marriage, Einstein's relationship with Elsa was more practical than passionate. Elsa managed much of Einstein's public life, handling the demands of his growing fame. She was deeply supportive of his work and provided him with the emotional stability that had been lacking in his first marriage. However, Einstein's personal life remained complicated. He was known to have had several affairs, even during his marriage to Elsa. Einstein's relationship with his children, particularly his second son, Eduard, was fraught with difficulty. Eduard, who showed signs of brilliance as a child, was later diagnosed with schizophrenia, leading to lifelong struggles with mental illness. This put a strain on their relationship, as Einstein found it difficult to connect with Eduard during his later years. His relationship with Hans Albert, while more cordial, was also marked by distance, as Einstein's career often kept him away from his family. Einstein's personal life was far from perfect, filled with emotional challenges and complicated relationships. Despite these personal difficulties, his intellectual output remained staggering, with his work during this period solidifying his place among the greatest scientific minds of the 20th century. By 1915, Einstein had already made significant contributions to physics, but his crowning achievement was yet to come. In November of that year, he presented the general theory of relativity, which would go on to redefine our understanding of gravity, space, and time. Building on his earlier work on special relativity, the general theory proposed that gravity was not a force between objects, as Newton had suggested, but rather a curvature of space-time itself caused by mass and energy. The general theory of relativity predicted that massive objects, like the sun, would bend the fabric of space-time, causing light to follow a curved path. This theory provided a new framework for understanding phenomena such as planetary orbits, black holes, and the expansion of the universe. It also predicted that time itself would slow down in the presence of strong gravitational fields, a concept known as time dilation. Einstein's equations were groundbreaking, but they also seemed almost impossible to prove experimentally until 1919. During a solar eclipse, British astronomer Sir Arthur Eddington led an expedition to test one of Einstein's predictions, that light from distant stars passing close to the sun would be bent by its gravitational field. When Eddington's observations confirmed Einstein's theory, it sent shockwaves through the scientific community and made headlines around the world. The confirmation of Einstein's theory of general relativity in 1919 was a pivotal moment, both for physics and for Einstein's personal life. Overnight, he became a global celebrity. Newspapers across the globe hailed Einstein as a genius whose work had upended centuries of established scientific thought. His face appeared on the front pages of major publications, and he became one of the most recognizable figures of his time. This newfound fame came with its own set of challenges. Einstein, who had long valued his privacy, now found himself in the public spotlight. His lectures were packed, and his opinions on scientific, philosophical, and political matters were sought after by people around the world. Einstein's rise to fame marked a new phase in his life, one in which he would become not just a scientist, but also a public intellectual and a global icon. Political activism, pacifism, and Zionism. As Einstein's fame grew, so did his involvement in social and political causes. Having witnessed the devastation of World War I and the rise of militarism in Germany, Einstein became an outspoken advocate for peace. He was a committed pacifist and used his influence to speak out against nationalism and militarism. Pacifism and anti-militarism. During the 1920s, Einstein was a vocal critic of the growing militarization of Europe. He believed that war was a failure of humanity and that peaceful solutions could always be found through diplomacy and mutual understanding. He joined several international peace organizations and frequently spoke out against the arms race and the dangers of unchecked military power. However, Einstein's pacifism was not without its complexities. As Adolf Hitler and the Nazi regime rose to power in the 1930s, Einstein's views began to shift. He recognized the existential threat posed by fascism and totalitarianism and became a supporter of the need for military resistance against the Nazi regime. Involvement with Zionism. Alongside his advocacy for peace, Einstein was also a supporter of Zionism, the movement to establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine. Although Einstein was not a devout Jew, he was deeply concerned about the plight of Jewish people, particularly in the face of rising anti-Semitism in Europe. However, Einstein's vision of Zionism was more cultural than political. He did not necessarily support the creation of a Jewish state through political means, but instead envisioned a homeland where Jewish intellectual and cultural life could flourish. Einstein played an active role in the establishment of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, seeing it as a center for Jewish learning and scientific research. Though he was offered the presidency of Israel in 1952 after the death of Chaim Weizmann, Einstein declined, citing his lack of political experience and desire to remain focused on his scientific work. Einstein's political activism was not limited to pacifism and Zionism. He was also a staunch advocate for civil rights and social justice. He spoke out against racism, particularly in the United States, where he lived after fleeing Nazi Germany in the early 1930s. Einstein formed close relationships with African-American leaders like W.E.B. Du Bois and supported the civil rights movement in America. In 1933, when Adolf Hitler came to power in Germany, Einstein's life changed dramatically. As a Jewish intellectual, he was an immediate target for Nazi propaganda and persecution. Einstein had been visiting the United States when Hitler was appointed chancellor, and he quickly realized that returning to Germany was no longer an option. He resigned from all his academic positions in Germany and settled in Princeton, New Jersey, where he accepted a position at the Institute for Advanced Study. He would remain there for the rest of his life. Einstein's emigration to the United States marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life. He was now not just a scientist, but also a refugee and an advocate for the displaced and persecuted. His voice was one of the most powerful in the fight against fascism and totalitarianism, and his political views would continue to evolve as the world moved closer to World War II. Albert Einstein's pacifism was one of his defining principles, but as the threat of Nazi Germany grew, he faced a moral dilemma that would have lasting consequences. Though he had long opposed the use of military force, Einstein was deeply concerned about the possibility of Hitler developing nuclear weapons. In 1939, he was approached by fellow physicist Leo Szilard, who warned him of the potential for Germany to build an atomic bomb. Szilard convinced Einstein to write a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, urging him to initiate a U.S. research program into nuclear fission. Einstein's letter to Roosevelt, delivered in October 1939, is often credited with launching the Manhattan Project, the U.S. government's top-secret program to develop atomic weapons. Though Einstein did not directly participate in the project, his involvement in urging the U.S. government to begin research was a crucial step in the creation of the atomic bomb. For Einstein, this was a painful decision. He had long opposed the use of violence and military force, but the threat posed by Nazi Germany forced him to reconsider his pacifism. When the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, Einstein was devastated. Though he had played a small but significant role in the development of nuclear weapons, he had hoped that they would never be used. After the war, Einstein became one of the most prominent voices advocating for nuclear disarmament. He frequently spoke out against the use of atomic weapons and warned of the dangers of a nuclear arms race. Einstein's involvement in the development of the atomic bomb marked a turning point in his life. He had always been a pacifist, but the horrors of World War II forced him to grapple with the moral complexities of scientific progress. After the war, he devoted much of his energy to promoting peace and nuclear disarmament, becoming a leading figure in the global peace movement. In the years following World War II, Albert Einstein continued to be a vocal advocate for peace and social justice. He was particularly concerned with the growing tension between the United States and the Soviet Union, which had resulted in the Cold War and the nuclear arms race. Einstein used his influence to speak out against the proliferation of nuclear weapons and urged world leaders to seek peaceful solutions to global conflicts. During his final years, Einstein was deeply engaged in political and social causes. He was a founding member of the Emergency Committee of Atomic Scientists, which sought to educate the public about the dangers of nuclear weapons and promote peaceful uses of atomic energy. He also continued to speak out on behalf of civil rights, particularly in the United States, where he became an outspoken critic of racism and segregation. Einstein's commitment to social justice extended to his relationships with prominent African-American intellectuals and activists, including W.E.B. Du Bois and Paul Robeson. Even in his later years, Einstein remained focused on his scientific work. His primary goal during this period was to develop a unified field theory, a single framework that could explain both the forces of gravity and electromagnetism. Despite his best efforts, Einstein was never able to achieve this goal, and the quest for a unified theory would continue long after his death. Albert Einstein passed away on April 18, 1955, at the age of 76, from an abdominal aortic aneurysm. In his final moments, he continued to think about the world and its future. Even as he lay on his deathbed, Einstein refused surgery, accepting his fate with the same calm rationality with which he had approached his scientific work. Einstein's legacy is one that transcends science. He is remembered not only for his groundbreaking contributions to physics, but also for his moral courage, his advocacy for peace, and his commitment to social justice. He left behind a world forever changed by his ideas and his influence.